Welcome back to my YouTube channel, y'all. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And I'm just so happy that this is my first video for YouTube. Like, I'm just so happy because I need to do an about me video, but that's going to come later. I promise you it's coming because guess what, y'all? I got me a new camera. It's just, the content's going to be coming, honey. Just stay tuned. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, share it, y'all. Just help a sister out. Help us, sister, out. But anyway, let's get to this documentary review. The reason why this documentary means so much to me is because if you know me, then you know I am like and I have to say Ben, I am one of Janet Jackson's biggest fans. Like, biggest fans. And I'm not talking about like a fan that I became a fan like a year ago, 2 years ago. No. I've been a fan since childhood. I was in elementary school telling them people about Janet Jackson, and they telling me, you know, that's because I went to private schools, so Catholic schools. So they were like, you don't need to be talking about that. If I'm feeling Janet, and I had to write anytime we had to write stories, Janet, you know this, Janet, we had to sing a song. Girl, I remember one time we had to do a project for school, and I did Janet Together Again. I get so lonely. Girl, them people was sick of me. Like, they was like, Girl, I remember one time it was a project. I had this big, I was in the 8th grade, and we had some type of project, and my mom used to work for the cable company in New Orleans, girl. And Janet had Live from Hawaii was airing on HBO, so they sent my mama's company a bunch of promotional stuff. And my mama knew how much I loved Janet, girl. And I remember my mama had came to home and she had that big Hawaii, Janet Live from Hawaii, HBO. It was, and I still remember that it was Sunday, February 17th, 2002, girl. It was a big old poster. I had that in my room. Girl, I took that poster out of my room. Because what it was is Janet had like a little leg, and then she had they covered, like, you could tell she had clothes, but they covered it and put the writing so it looked like she ain't had them. Girl, them people got in trouble. They got mad at me because I brought that to school for a project, and I was like, hold on, this goes along with the story I'm trying to tell. Girl, whatever. But like, I say all that to say, I know I'm tangenting off, but I say all that to say, like, I've been a Janet fan. Like, when people think of Janet, like, it's so bad, like, not so bad, but when people think of Janet Jackson, they automatically think of me. They be like, oh, that's Carol. They be like, oh, that's Carol. Anytime people see things of Janet, they send it to my phone. Like, when that documentary, when Janet first said she was on the documentary, everybody was sending it to me. Then I got on social media for a while, and then when I got back on the night the documentary aired, and people was like hitting my DMs like, girl, where you been? When I tell you I've been looking for you all week, I've been seeing commercials. I was like, what Carol? What Carol? They was doing it because they know since Ben I've been a Janet Jackson fan. But I say all that to say, I said all this to give you a little background knowledge about how passionate I am that Janet did this documentary, because when I tell you Janet Jackson's music has been like the biggest staple in my life, like, I know all her songs, like everything. I done seen this woman live so many times. I done seen her live. I ain't seen her live so many times, it's ridiculous. But I say all that to say, like, I learned Janet through her music. Like, I feel like I connected to her through her music. So, and like music, movies, her interviews, I would collect all her magazines. Every time Janet's on the cover of something, I go buy it, and I gotta keep it. But I say all that to say, like, I feel like I learned Janet through her music, through interviews, through little clippings that I would read, little things, stuff like that. But this documentary, I felt as if this is not a documentary that we needed as a culture. I feel like this is a documentary I needed for my soul. Like, this documentary, like, I had been feeling like, not the best lately, but this documentary has inspired me and has put me, like, when I tell you my way of thinking now is going to be so different going forward. Like, it's like I needed this documentary for my soul. So I say all that to say, like, let me give you this documentary review. Why this documentary, not only did it change my life, but it opened, my mind up. Like, it was much needed, and I thank Janet Jackson. Like, I thank her, like, because she didn't have to do this, but I'm so grateful that she did, because, you know, Janet is a legend. And you want to know your legend stories. You want to know what your legends went through. And I'm just so happy that she was able to tell her story how she wanted to tell it. Because this documentary was 5 years in the making. Like, I'm pretty sure that was sometime within that 5 years, they were like, scrap it. And I'm just happy that they were able to push through it and get us this documentary, because we needed this. Like, Janet is so private, and that's one thing that I truly admire her, and I'm also going to adopt that philosophy. Like, she's extremely private with her private life. Like, you know what's going on, but you don't. Like, you really don't. You may think you know, but you don't. And I love that. So this documentary is like, we got like a front row glimpse to the things that at least I saw, because I was one of those Janet Jackson fans that I microscoped everything. Like, everything she did, I was like, oh, she's going to be on this. She's going to be on this. Like, it's like the stuff that I remember living through is like, now she's talking through what she went through at that time, when I remember, like, it's like, I remember that, and she's telling us about it. So anyway, let's get into it. I want to say first of all, I put on my gold hoops, because in the and I got my Janet sweatshirt on, but I sell it, girl. If I open up my closet and show y'all all the Janet stuff I got, it's ridiculous, but I ain't gonna do that right now. But I sell that to say, I put these gold hoops on because Janet stated that her mother loved her in gold hoops, and I was like, I love wearing gold hoops. Like, I'm a gold hoop girl. So when she said that, girl, why I wouldn't put my gold hoops? I've been wearing them since. Except not to work. I ain't wearing them to work, cause girl. But anyway, I put my gold hoops on. My bun coming loose. Girl, it's a little loose knot I put in my head. But anyway, I put my gold hoops on, and just for the video. So I'm very excited about that. So let's get started. My biggest takeaway from this Janet documentary was, like, Janet has been through some things. Like, I already knew she was a strong black woman, but no, she really is that strong black woman. Like, she is not to be played with. Like, you're going to put some respect on her name. And that's on period. Like, period. Yeah, like, y'all can't play with her no more. Like, you just can't. Next. So, with that being said, like, what I loved is that Janet opened up and she shared, like, a lot of things that she went through in her life. And the one thing that I absolutely love, and it's the one thing that sticks with me, is how Janet has been through a lot. Like, she has been through some things that would have killed the next person. Like, she's been through some things that, I'm gonna be quite honest with you, some things that I don't even think I would be able to continue move on and, like, still be open enough to share. Like, she's been through things that would have killed the next individual, but yet she's still living and thriving. And what I love about her is that she never played victim. Janet never played victim. Like, well, if it wasn't for this, or I had to do this, she literally, like, took her licks that she got in life, whether they were fair, unfair, just awful. She took her licks, she learned from them, and she forgives. Like, she forgave. And she a better woman than she a better woman than I am right now. Hopefully I aspire to get to that level eventually, but, like, there's certain things, like, Janet was like, we found out in the documentary, I'm like, woo, I don't know, not me, no, I don't know. But anyway, I want to get started with some cool, like, some takeaways. I took little notes, y'all. I took notes. So, some notes that I took about the documentary. So, I just want to get started. This is, whatever, let's go. I loved in part 1 of the documentary, Janet quoted this. This is a quote from her. She said, "Discipline with love is tyranny. Tyrants they were not," when she speaks on her parents. And I just love the way she spoke on her father, her mother, and her upbringing. Janet was the youngest of 9 kids, and I love how how she told us how she remembers the the order in which they were born. Like it's a girl, 3 boys, a girl, 3 boys, and a girl. Because it's only 3 girls and it's 6 boys. And I love that. So when she speaks on how, at a young age, 7 years old, her dad took the whole, of course the Jackson 5 had already made a name for themselves. But when they moved from Gary, Indiana to Encino, California, how they were the first African American family to move into the neighborhood, and how it was petitions to get them out the neighborhood, and how when she went to school, like how some of her school teachers were mean, and don't get me started on that, but how some of her school teachers were mean, and like when they would see her skin, they would like touch her hair and rub her skin. It was like, do it come off? And it's like, like this was the 70s, and it's like that wasn't that long ago. And it's so crazy because, we still experience that present day, but, whatever. I just love how she shared that. And then I like how she also mentioned that when she was 7, her dad was able to get the entire family the Las Vegas show on the Strip. The Las Vegas variety show. And I think it just speaks volume on Joe Jackson. I know... a couple of Joe kids have expressed, disdain of how their father raised them with discipline and with force and with whipping. And I'm not by all means trying to discredit what they said or anything, but what a lot of people, like what I loved in this documentary, how Janet said, like Janet did not deny that her daddy was forceful. She did not deny that she missed out on a father-daughter relationship with him because he wanted them to refer to him as Joseph. She didn't deny any of that, but what I love is that she understood that the vision that her father had for the family, and he knew the vision. Maybe they couldn't see the vision at that moment, but Joe had a vision, and by any means he was going to execute it. Because like people could say, he abused those kids, he took away them kids' childhood. I mean, yes, he did do that. But at the same time, Joe gave birth to 9 Jacksons. And he was able in the 70s, in the 60s and the 70s, to get 9 Jacksons out of the hood into the top of the charts. He was able to get 9 Jacksons out the hood to their own variety show on the Strip. Like Janet said, they were the only kids on the Strip. And he did this as an African American man. Do you know how hard it is as a black man to do things present day? And I'm talking about 2022. Just imagine how hard it was for Joe back in the 60s and 70s. And that was the picture that Janet was trying to paint. Like, just imagine how hard it was back in the 60s and the 70s for a black man to walk in these white spaces and not only sell 1 child, but to sell 9, like 9 of them. All 9 of them was in that show. Reby, Jackie, Jermaine, Tito, Latoya, Michael, Marlon, Randy, Jenny. Like, I hope I got all of them. But yeah, all 9. So, I know that couldn't have been easy. Like, I know it couldn't have been easy. So I love how Janet, expressed that, yes, my parents, were controlling. Yes, they were rough, but they had a vision. And if it wasn't for my father and his vision, I would not be who I am today. Hell, your family wouldn't be who they are today. The Jackson family was our first black royal. That was a first black, that's black excellence. That whole family was black excellence. Like, we cannot sit here and deny. Like, even outside of the variety show, when they all went on to do their own things. Reby had solo career success, sorry. Reby had solo career success with Centipede. Jackie, Jermaine, they all went on to do, to do their own things. Michael Jackson. Michael. And then to have Janet follow right behind his footsteps, like, we're not gonna get that again. Like, I would hope so, but we haven't gotten that like that in, this was what, the 80s, the 70s, the 80s, and we're in the 2022. excellence that Joe Jackson saw. Joe Jackson saw that in his kids, and he made sure by any means necessary, ain't nobody gonna stop him, and he was gonna execute that. And I mean, we gotta thank.
Let's get back to the documentary.
So it talked about Janet, her upbringing, and how close Janet was to her brothers, and how Janet did how they did the Las Vegas review, and then how she went on to do Good Times, and how she went on to do Fame, and how I took notes, y'all, so I got my notebook, and how she wanted to go ahead and when it was time for her to, branch out and become an adult, she wanted to go ahead and go to Pepperdine University, which I thought was so cool. And she wanted to study business law. But her dad, she said how they had an in-home studio and she recorded like a little track. And then she said how her dad, Michael, and them heard it. And her dad was like, oh no, you're going to sing. Like, nah, forget that. Forget going to college. You're going to sing. I'm going to make you famous. And and just like Janet said, like, what father didn't want their child going to college? This was also around the time when the brothers, like, just like in the CBS, just like in the Jackson, the biopic, when the brothers, dropped Joe as their manager. So Joe, Joe ain't got the brothers to manage no more. So he was like, let me go get my daughter. I'm gonna make my daughter a star. So Joe had that vision. He was like, nah, you're not going to college. You gonna sing, sis. You gonna get on this mic and sing. I love how Janet, she mentions like with her first 2 studio albums, how she literally just pulled up to the studio. They told her, hey, you gonna sing this, and she sung it. And clearly, she wasn't passionate about it, and it shows. It showed because nobody related to it. Like they didn't do well. She talked about how when she did Fame, she didn't even want to do Fame, but she did Fame, and how she got married to break away from her father, like not break away from her father necessarily, but to gain her independence. She said she felt like in order to gain her independence, she needed to get married. And I was just like, wow. Like, also Janet mentions how naive she was at the time, but it had to be like 4 knocks around there in order for her to be like, if I get married, I can break free. Then she married James. She talks about how she married James DeBarge in 1984. She was only 18 years old. How he didn't give her a ring, and that they eloped in Michigan. Well, I think she said uncles or cousins, one of his family members married them. And that night, like, she literally spent her wedding night in wherever she was, spent her wedding night for 4, like, she waited for him for 4 hours. Like, she was basically alone. That's sad. Like, that, it's sad. And she tells us that she later found out it was drugs. She took the drugs away from James, and how they were, like, literally rolling on the floor fighting to get the drugs because she would try to throw them away. She talks about how she was doing Fame at the time, and she would be waiting for James to come pick her up, like 2-3 hours. He taking his sweet time to come pick her up from work, probably in her car. And she was like, he had me waiting. And she was like, I gotta let him go. So she said she drove him somewhere. And she said, as she drove him, she told him, like, look, this ain't working. I gotta go. And she said she locked the doors. And she went back to her parents' house because she said she was over that. But I mean, at the same time, she was an 18-year-old girl with no real life experience. She had lived a shelter life. So I can see her running back home, 18. On the end of part 1, it begins to lead us into part 2, and it brings up those baby rumors. So this one quote, I just absolutely loved it. I had to pause it, rewind it to get this quote, because I loved how Janet said, I don't like the weight of that negativity around me. And when I tell you I'm about to wear that quote out, like in my daily life, everything, like I'm about to wear that quote out. I don't like the weight of that negativity around me. And she speaks to that about the secret baby rumors, basically saying she did not have a secret child. She didn't give it the Rebe, her older sister, to raise. She didn't give it the Jackie, Randy, none of them raised her child. Janet don't have a secret baby. And basically saying, like, she couldn't have a child and keep them away from their father. She was like, she'll never do that. So, in part two, she starts talking about how things changed between her and Michael during the thriller era. She speaks on like her and Michael used to be so close, and then she said there was one time Michael came into her room and she said Michael didn't speak, she didn't speak, and she said she knew then like things had changed. You know, like that has to be hard. Like somebody who I shared the same DNA with, we shared the same parents, like same name, lineage. Like you was my brother. Like to see that relationship just like fade away, I know that has to hurt. We get introduced to Renee in part two, but at this moment we're introduced to him as her boyfriend. And I didn't know how I knew who Renee was. Like before the documentary, I knew her because I'm telling you, I'm a big Janet fan. I knew. So I knew who Renee was, but I didn't realize how big of a part Renee played in Janet's life, like and career. Like Renee was like, he put himself in there, like baby, he was Mr. Janet, like literally Mr. Janet. Like there was one what he said when he said he was like, I'm an extension of Janet or something. He said, did I read? He was like, I'm an extension. I don't know. He was just basically like, I'm an extension of Janet. So I was like, dang, because he literally was like her right hand man, and I didn't realize like he was literally like there. Like the footage that they're showing is footage that he recorded. So like, you know, whatever happened to them happened. You know, it sucks because they were married, but they ended up getting married. But it's like it tells like if he wasn't around, would we have gotten this footage? Like it's so crazy. Like I say that to say like God put people in your life for a reason. And although it may not end the way you anticipated, but like everything happened for a reason. Like because if there was no Renee, we honestly, and I'm not saying that, you know, Janet would have never been successful without him, because by all means, Janet was successful before him, and she has shown how she has been successful after him. But when they were together, like, you know, we're not going to discredit anything. When they were together, we got some of our most iconic Janet pieces, photos, lyrics, dance moves. I'm not giving him 100% credit, but he was a bit of an influence, like the Rolling Stone cover. I'm going too far, but the Rolling Stone cover was in it, but that was Renee. Like, his hands were on her. The Again video, he directed it. Like, that is one of my favorite Janet Jackson songs, and that is one of my favorite Janet Jackson videos. To know that it was him behind it, directing Gary Gordon, and Janet is like, I did not know how influential Renee was to Janet's career had it not been for this documentary. I was just like, oh, that was just her ex-husband. Because, you know, I know how it ended. But, well, from what I read, how it ended, I don't know. Because, you know, I don't know these people. I love her, though. In part two, there was the scene where Janet and Jimmy got into it in the studio while they was recording... while they were recording Rhythm Nation. So let's take a little step back. So Janet ended up gaining her independence by leaving her father behind, and he ended up closing his business. But the receptionist at his business, he gave his receptionist permission to go be Janet's first assistant. So his receptionist, you know, he locked the doors, closed the business, and he told her, look, go on, go be my baby's assistant. So she ended up being Janet's first assistant. Janet went to, I could be pronouncing this wrong, but Minneapolis. I think it's Minneapolis. I think I did pronounce it right. So Janet went to Minneapolis to go record her third album, but I call it her first because it's the first one that did good. But her third album, Control, with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, and literally we all know what Control did. It skyrocketed. It overexceeded like everyone's expectations. I forgot how many millions it sold, but it sold millions. I think she got her first Grammy nomination, or won her first Grammy. She won like a bunch of billboards. You know, it was well received, and it did really good. So at this point, it's time for Janet to record album number 2. And, you know, she goes back into the studio, and there was this one scene in the documentary where she was in there recording Rhythm Nation. I think it was Rhythm Nation. She was recording Rhythm Nation in the studio, and Jimmy and Terry had started laughing, and Terry was like, look, let me back out. I ain't got nothing to do with this. And then Jimmy and Janet went back and forth. Boy, when I tell you, I had chuckled because let me tell you, Jimmy had my girl messed up at that moment. Janet was like, I don't have to deal with this. And then Renee was like, the album's so sweet up. And he was like, well, what are you going to tell Anna? I'm just telling him it's not working out. Like she was fed up. She was like, I'm just telling him it's not working out. So I thought that was really cute. It also shows that because Control did so well, there was a lot of pressure because they didn't basically, they needed Control's follow-up to be strong. They didn't want any flukes. So Rhythm Nation had to come with it. How successful the album was, that album broke Thriller's record because it had 7 #1 hits from the same album. So she took out Mike. She's like, you know, you come from, you know, you and your brother Legend. You know, I know Joe Jackson had to be proud that he has 2 kids. That, like, you know, it's one thing. You know, it's one thing to achieve a certain record. But then to have your little sister follow up behind you and break that record, do you know how as a parent you must feel like? I can only imagine how Joe, and I know Joe was probably like, oh my Lord, see, this was the vision. This was the vision. This is what I saw. Like to have, first of all, to have a child even attempt to create the record is a standard. But then to have your youngest child come behind and knock your oldest child from the record. Girl. Talk about black excellence. So yeah, Janet beat Michael's Thriller record with the Rhythm Nation tour. Now let's go into how she had a dream about, you know, about her opening night, and then when she came, the opening night came, like all those people came, you couldn't walk down the street, XYZ. So, and it talked about how successful the tour was. The tour went on to be the best, I don't want to quote it wrong, but it was like it's the highest opening tour ever. Like the highest grossing debut tour ever. Like Janet, them people came out to see old girl. Like they came out to see my girl. That's part 3. In part 3, it opens up with Janet receiving her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Janet received that star at 22, 24, because she received it in 90. So I had to Google it to make sure. But yeah, Janet received her star when she was 23 going on 24. So she was young when she got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like, I knew she got it during the Rhythm Nation era because I'm a fan. I seen the pictures of her with the whole Rhythm Nation get up. But to know that this woman was only 23, 24 years old receiving her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, like, that's amazing. So it opens with that. It talks about how, you know, like I mentioned, Rhythm Nation broke Thriller's record for having 7 #1s. And then that put her in a bidding war with record companies because I guess her contract with A&M was out. And Virgin jumped into the picture, and she signed with Virgin, and she became the highest earning recording star ever. The highest earning recording star ever at that time. They say the deal was estimated between $40 to $50 million. That's a lot of money back in this was 92, 93. I know, like say, it had to have been like around 91, 92 because they said instead of her jumping right back into the studio, she went on to go do Poetic Justice, which is my favorite movie of all time. 1, because she's in it, and 2, Tupac's in it. And I mean, it's just like, it's a hood classic. Like, I can recite that. Let me stop. I can recite that movie line for line. So, first of all, let me say this. I love that we got footage from the Poetic Justice table read. Baby, that thing was iconic. You had Regina King. You had Tupac. You had Q-Tip, you had Janet Jackson, you had John Singleton, Joe Torre, he wasn't big, but you had all of them people. That is iconic. And to say we got that footage, like, it was like, thank you. like, thank you. Like, that was just, when I said, I was like, this is iconic. Like, it's like, because now you see those Poetic Justice t-shirts everywhere, and it's like, this was the table read for. It also talks about Renee helping push out Janet's sexuality during the Again shoot. Like, I know that had to be hard for Gary Gardone. That, as a woman, that would have been hard for me. Like, to have my man directing me and this hot man over here putting his hands in my pants, like, girl, how'd you do it? And then I like how she tells the story of Gary asking her, like, so you have a boyfriend? And she was like, yeah. And he was like, well, how does he feel about all of this? And she was like, he's the one telling us what to do. It was like, oh my God, y'all level of professionalism, like, is something I aspire to have. Part 3, what else? Oh, it talks about Janet let me sit right for this. Scratch my bum. Part 3 talks about, I had to put my notebook down. It talks about Janet having a Coca-Cola deal on the table. So, if you know, Michael was signed with Pepsi, and Coke, I guess, wanted to do a little rivalry or whatever. So they decided they wanted to sign Janet to a deal. And they were gonna, I'm pretty sure that deal was gonna be crazy, a large lump sum, whatever. And I like how they show footage of them actually sitting in the boardroom with the Coca-Cola executives and talking about how, like, they will be excited, they're eager to, join them, to be a part of the Coca-Cola family. And then Janet says that's when the first set of, the sexual abuse allegations hit against Michael. And it just, that upsetted me. So I remember I tweeted, like, I was just like, what? Like, it's so upsetting because, one, Janet and Michael, although they're siblings, those are two different people. And two, they were full-blown adults when this happened. Like, Michael was well into his 30s and Janet was approaching her 30s at this moment. So it's not like Janet was living in the same house with Michael. It's not like she was there present. So it just goes to show you, like, even back then and even now, like, people's ways of thinking. Like, she said, like, basically she was guilty by association. Because Coca-Cola, there was a deal on the table. They were getting ready to sign. But when the first set of allegations came out against Michael, Coca-Cola was like, oh, no, thank you. Like, we don't want to touch that. And it's like, what Janet had to do, first of all, Michael wasn't convicted of anything at the time. These were just allegations. This was before Michael had even settled. These were just allegations. So it's not like it was Michael with the Coca-Cola deal on the table. It was Janet, like I don't know. It up to saying I ain't like how y'all did Janet back then, because those were just allegations. Michael was never convicted of anything. So for you to pull an endorsement from his sister who had nothing to do with it, that was dumb. Like, that was so dumb. Y'all could have had some icon. We could have had some like Coca-Cola, really. So also in part 3, they also talk about how, okay, so that was the Coca-Cola deal went bad. And then it shows when Janet and Michael, you know how the allegations just literally took a toll on Michael. Like, they was wearing my brother out. They was wearing Mike out. And how Janet went to Michael's New York apartment. And it was so cute because it's like, this was 1993. And this is like how we work present day. Like, it's so cute seeing, like, they were so ahead of their time. Like, this is Black excellence. Like, they were so ahead of their time. Like, to see Janet on the edge of the bed with her laptop, like, singing her little hook, the little bridge or hook part of Scream. And then you'd hear Michael tell her, and sing it like how you sung Black Cat. And then Michael's like, you know, Janet was like, okay, I'm going to type it up. I'm going to fix it. Like, and it's just like, that's what we do now. Like, it's so crazy. Like, just to see them in their element. Like, this, iconic song, Scream. Like, look to see how they wrote it. Like, I'm forever grateful. It also talks about how Janet and Renee's relationship began to take a turn. It felt as if Renee was really invasive. Like, there was one scene where they went to go visit, Mama Catherine, Janet's mother, and Renee and Janet was like, "Don't film my mother." He was like, "Nobody else see it." She was like, "Don't film my mother." He was like, "No." She was like, Janet was like, "Look, don't film my mother. Like, I don't. There's nothing you can tell me right now, but you're not gonna film my mother." So and then it shows like he asked one of her dancers, Tish at the time, like a question, like talking about what's your favorite part of your body, and then like he was all in Tina's face. Tina was Janet's choreographer from what 93 to 98. So he was invasive, and then that's when Tina told us she knew something was going on because by the time Rhythm Nation, by the time Velvet Rope was coming about, Renee wasn't around like he was. Like, Renee was Janet's right hand man, like during Rhythm Nation, Janet, and it was a little period for Designer Decade. They didn't really show too much from that era. But when Velvet Rope came around, they said Renee wasn't around like he used to. So that's when Tina sort of hinted, like she kind of knew, ooh, it must be a little trouble in paradise. And then that's when she said that Janet told her, started telling that Renee was, he was popping pills. Maybe he got hooked on them, what is it called? Prescription pills? Painkillers. I'm sorry. He got hooked on painkillers. And Janet started the documentary out by saying she attracts men with addictions. That's what she said. Was it addictions? I can't remember. But basically she said she attract men with addictions. And girl, Janet and Renee end up divorcing in part 3. He did end up suing her too. Because basically he was like, I created this, I helped out with this, I did this. I mean, we ain't taking nothing away from you. You did help out, but at the end of the day, like, Janet is the one who broke down the doors. Like, Janet was the one in the studio recording. Janet was the one that went out and promoted this stuff. Janet was the one dancing on toe till her feet hurt. Like, she said that in one of her songs on the All For You album. I think it was Better Days. Better Days? No, not Better Days. Girl, hold on. Let me tell you what song this is real quick. Let me do All For You. And by the way, all Janet's albums are charting back up again, as they should. So excited for her. It's a song on All For You. It's called Truth, I think. Let me look at the lyrics real quick. Yeah, it's true. It's true, because she said, listen, I had a career before, now didn't I? Don't get me up in here singing, but and she said, I had a few hits before, now didn't I? And I danced until my feet was sore, now didn't I? Period, baby. I knew it was one of them J songs on that album. Show you, like, yeah, Renee was a intricate part, of Janet's career, but that All For You era, he wasn't around for that. And that was one of her littest eras, I guess, because at least for me, I was old enough to be around. Like, I remember the TRL appearances. I remember the 106 and Park appearances. I remember the MTV Icon. The MTV Icon, she was the first ever MTV Icon. That segued the All For You era, because she ended up performing All For You at the end of it. So I just remember that entire era, and Renee wasn't around for that. So that just goes to show you, like, he helped out, but Janet she knew what she was doing. But anyway, and like, I hate to go back to Renee, but they say he came. They said he was controlling, because Wayne Scott Lucas, her wardrobe designer from, what was the years it said? I don't remember, but her wardrobe designer, he said, like, how could Janet, a woman who sing about control and like broke away from her father, end up going into a relationship where she was controlled? And I'm like, that is so crazy, because it's so funny. Like, they always say, we end up searching for our parents in relation. We end up getting our parents in relationships. I kid you no lie. It's awful, but it's the truth. And then it starts talking about her dating. She meet Jermaine. So Offer You pops off. Her career is still reaching new heights. And then she meets Jermaine Dupree, and they begin to date. And that's the end of part 3. Part 4 starts out with a cute little. I'm like, it looked like it could be a part of a reality TV show. Janet and Jermaine just sitting on the sofa, and Jenny eating that crunchy ass cereal, and she just crunching, baby. You heard every crunch. You just heard every crunch. And that's when Randy mentions to her, hey, Justin's team been trying to reach out to us to do the Super Bowl. And then that's when we get into the Super Bowl talk. So basically, we all know what happened in the Super Bowl. You know, Janet had an amazing, one of the best Super Bowl shows almost ever. And she brought out Justin, which I just don't see why she did that. Like, you know, I get it. Justin was hot at the time, but it's like, she didn't need Justin on that show. But anyway, so she brought out Justin for the show. And we all know what happened. He ripped off the little patch or whatever, the little bra piece, and her nipple. And it wasn't even a full nipple because she had that little, that nipple ring shield on. It was exposed for what, 9/16 of a second? Yeah, we all know what happened with the Super Bowl. And basically, you know, Janet just said, like, you know, that whole Super Bowl situation, it was a bunch of people with their drawers stuck up their ass. Like, it was just unnecessary. And I hate to say it, Michael was on trial at that time, and it's like, once again, guilty by association. They mad at Michael. You know, they needed, it's like a blame game. They just needed someone to put the blame. And, you know, CBS was mad because they were fined, you know, what, $500,000? But they end up appealing it. I mean, yeah, they end up suing or appealing, and CBS eventually did not pay that fine. So, but the head of CBS, Les Moonves, whatever, he had like a personal vendetta out for Janet because he felt as if she wasn't as apologetic as she should have been, or she wasn't as remorseful as she should have been. But if she's telling you, hey, it was an accident, he didn't believe it was an accident, whatever. So he was one of those people where he was like, look, I don't want nothing. She can't do nothing. If, you know, basically he was the head saboteur of Janet's career at that moment. Jermaine Dupree, who was Janet's boyfriend at the time, he sat on like one of the Grammy boards, and he talked about how he resigned after that because he didn't like how they treated Janet after the Super Bowl. And it goes back to, like I said, how God put people in your life for reasons and seasons. Like, I'm so happy, like, during that time in Janet's life, which I'm pretty sure was a stressful, crazy time, I'm so happy that Jermaine Dupree was there for her, because you can tell, like, he literally was like her rock. He helped her overcome and get better in that era. Like, he was her support system. And I'm glad, Jermaine Dupree was there for her. Janet ended, like, before the commercial break, Janet got on with a video. You could tell that she had literally just recorded on her iPhone, and she asked us all to let the past be the past and forgive Justin Timberlake. She was like, this happened a long time ago. We need to forgive. She talking about her and Justin are friends. She just spoke to him last week, and then we need to do the same. And by all due respect, Queen Mother, I love you, Janet, and I hear you. We hear you. But that's going to be a strong nah for me, like, nah. So then it goes on to talk about Janet and Jermaine's relationship, and how Janet said she wanted to marry Jermaine Dupree and she wanted to have several kids with him. And she was just so happy, and she was like, that was the first relationship that she was in where she wasn't with an addict. Hold on, y'all. Girl, that's something got my throat tied, dry. So she was like, it was refreshing because it was the first relationship that she was in where she wasn't with someone who was addicted to something. And, you know, she just talked about like they were happy, you know, he was there for her. You know, they just talked about the chemistry relationship. And then Ben, the I guess the producer, the man behind the camera, Ben asked Jermaine, he was like, why did it end? That was the question. Why did it end? And just looking at Jermaine and hearing him re-ask that question, I just knew he was about to lie. And right then what he said, when Ben said, why did it end? And Jermaine went, why did it end? I said, he about to lie. He about to lie. But I mean, he didn't lie. He just didn't tell the whole part. Basically, he was like, he was reckless. He was like, I was reckless. And I mean, once again, like, I'm a Janet fan, so I know what the streets say, what Jermaine did. Like, I knew what Jermaine had already done. But, you know, those are rumors. Those are hearsay. That's not something confirmed. But to actually hear Janet on the next clip, and Janet goes, Ben asked Janet the same question, why did it end? And Janet was like, I heard he was cheating. And then she goes, and she starts giggling. I'm like, that's not funny. Like, why? Like, this dude cheated on you. Like, there's nothing funny about that. And I'm just like, it's like, I knew it because I've heard it. Like, it was like rumors. Because, you know, Janet and Jermaine been broke up almost over 10 years ago. Like, they've been, you know, they haven't been in a relationship in a really long time. But it's just like, hearing it from their mouths, like hearing it from Janet and Jermaine themselves saying, oh, we're not together because he cheated on me. That was like a different level of like you literally could have stabbed me in my heart. I was just like, what? Like, it was like one of those, like, I remember I tweeted, I was like, I know you effing lie. Like, I was just like, what? I'm like, you really cheated. Like, bro. Like, what is wrong with you? And then Jermaine, he gives us an explanation as to why he did it. He basically stated that when you're with a woman, when you're with Janet Jackson, it brings on an onset of women coming after you. So basically, in so many words, Jermaine Dupree was a hot commodity because of Janet. Like, women wanted to be with him because, like, that's Janet Jackson's man. So, you know, and this is Jermaine's words. Like, I'm quoting him. He literally was like, I was a man. That's exactly, he was like, I was a man. Like, so his excuse to that was that he was a man and he fed into temptation and he cheated on Janet. Janet gives us a little bit more. She was like, it wasn't just cheating though. Like, she said it wasn't just that. She also said it was the time. She was like, Jermaine was an extreme workaholic and she felt as if he couldn't carve out time for her. And then he's like, it goes back like, that's Janet Jackson. She begging you for time, like, you know, no tea, no shade, but Janet had, whatever. I'm not even going to do that because Janet said Jermaine's a good guy and I do believe he's the good guy. You know, we all make mistakes, but I don't know. I just feel like they were made, like, they would have been a good match, but it was just. And then Janet's also older than Jermaine by like, what, 7 years? So I don't know. But anyway, he shouldn't have cheated, but he did. So that was the end of them, the cheating and the time. And then it goes on from Janet and Jermaine, like Janet and Jermaine, straight to Janet and mommy mode. And let me tell you something about this, and I absolutely love it. When Janet left Jermaine, she went to go to when Janet was with Jermaine, she did the Tyler Perry movie, the first one, Why Did I Get Married? By the time the second one rolled around, you know, when Michael died, Janet and Jermaine was already done. They were their relationship was already over. So it talks about Tyler Perry, you know, putting Janet in his movies, and then it talks about when Michael passed, and Janet, you know, just said like they threw a party for their parents. And one of the last words that Janet and Michael told each other were, I love you. And I just think that is just amazing to know. The last thing I told my brother that he can just go on to know that was, I love you. And that was like just so touching, and it was just like how deep, like she was sad, like, you know, they lost their brother, and it is sad when you think about it. Like even when she asked her mom, you know, can you talk about it? And mom was like, I don't want to talk about it. It's like you could tell that still touches them, because it's like all the kids, like Michael is the one sibling that's no longer here, and you know, I don't know, it's just very sad. You know, may MJ rest in peace. I don't like talking about the dead or playing with him. Oh, I gotta mention something about that. When they did the Scream, I didn't talk about Scream. So real quick, when they did Scream, like I said, when Janet went to Michael's New York apartment to go write Scream, you know, Michael was just excited, and Janet did that in solidarity to show respect for her brother, like, you know, to show that I stand by my brother. My brother didn't do anything. So when it came down to record the video, Michael and Janet pretty much pick and plan everything out, and she was like, it was only supposed to be like a 2-day shoot. It ended up turning into a week, and they ended up spending like $7 million and all that. And she talked about how it wasn't the experience she had anticipated, because she said she said it was hard because she said she did days or he did nights or whatever. One of them did days, one of them did nights, and she said how the record company had them shoot separately. Like the record company basically did it out of competition, like to keep them apart. So she was like, she thought working with him, it would be just like how they were when they were little, but it wasn't. She also speaks about how Michael kept people around him that kept him away from his family. So I mean, you know, I don't play with the dead now, but it sounds like, you know, he may have had like a bunch of yes men around. See, that's why you gotta be careful about your circle. But you know, may his soul rest in peace. And then, like I said, Michael passed. Janet said the last words they said to each other was, I love you. And then it goes on to Janet had her baby at 50. She was married at the time, but what I do like is that this documentary makes no mention of husband number 3. And I'm a firm believer that out of sight, out of mind, baby. Out of sight, out of mind. So, yeah, she mentions nothing, so we don't know what happened. But, I mean, you Google it, like, they divorced, and Janet got, like, a nice payout from what, I don't know these people, but they said she got paid. So, I wouldn't tell neither if I got a check. I say I like to say, Janet mentions nothing about her third husband. She does begin, she talks about mom life, and we start getting her family's input about Janet becoming a mom. She did open up about the process to become a mom, how they had to fly to, you know, all these different doctors, like in Italy, and I forgot the other country, and all of these shots, and how she was persistent, and she got her beautiful baby boy at 50. After that, we begin to talk about Janet receiving her accolades. In 2019, she was inducted into the what is it? Hollywood, the Rock Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ooh. Oh, she just tweeted something. Let me see what she tweeted. She didn't tweet me. Oh, she tweeted the iTunes charts. So I can show you guys. Yeah, Janet Jackson just tweeted the iTunes charts, because she's like, I don't know if you guys can see if it's focused. But yes, she is literally R&B Soul Rhythm Nation is number 1. Janet is number 2. And on the pop music videos, That's the Way Love Goes is number 1. All For You is number 2. Rhythm Nation is number 3. If it's number 4. You Want This is number 5. Again is number 6. Control is number 7. Miss You Much is number 8. Escapade is number 9, and The Pleasure Principle is 10. So literally in the pop music videos, from 1 to 10 are all Janet. And in albums for pop, Control is number 1, Designer Decade is number 2, Velvet Rope is number 5, The Best of Number Ones is number 6, and Unbreakable is number 8. Talk about impact. Talk about impact. Like, my girl is getting paid. Well, you know, she been paid, honey. But she's getting paid. I just got another notification, honey. Oh, and then she retweeted what she posted on Instagram. And this is something I'm going to live by. Is I have no energy for hate. Either love you, wish you well, or hope you heal. And when I tell you, this speaks on my soul right now, because that is my exact mood. So, let me show you. She put, Let me see, is it? Yeah. Like, you know what? I'll put it on the screen. That's what I'm gonna do. That's how I'm gonna end the video. I'm gonna just post Janet, what Janet posted. I'll put a little screenshot of that. I'll clip it in the video. But yeah. So it talks about Janet getting her things, her, you know, her accolades, being inducted, being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the legacy and the impact Janet Jackson has had on the culture. And we start hearing like all these different celebrities, you know, voice their opinions and give Janet her praise and talk about what Janet has done and what basically essentially what is Janet Jackson. Like, we know what it is, but like what has, it's so good to hear from her peers. So yeah, we hear that, and then it cuts out, and then it has a clip of her new song with Love to Love or Love It something. But yeah, I know this video is long. I could have talked my head off. My camera, I'm learning it. I love this camera though. I love it. This is the camera I wanted. Shout out to my sister. Y'all, if you like this video, I know it was long-winded. If you're excited to get to know me and come on this ride that I'm about to embark on for 2020, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're a fellow Janet Jackson fan, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Let's connect. My social handles are @CarolTheGreat on both Instagram, Twitter, and I do have Snap. I barely use it, and I do have TikTok, and I don't like. I'm starting like trying to learn. But yeah, if you want to connect, I'm @CarolTheGreat. I'm on Twitter and Instagram heavy. So well, mainly Twitter, Instagram, but yeah, Instagram too. So go ahead and follow. If you got to the end of this video, first and foremost, I want to say thank you, because I know I rambled. I know you didn't have to do this, so I do appreciate it. Janet Jackson, if you just happen to stumble across this video, watch, please know I am your #1 fan. And if I were to ever meet you, I would just die. Do you hear me? Just die. Just know that I've been a fan. I ain't one of these bandwagon fans that's hopping on after this documentary. I've been on Janet, okay? So I just wanted to put that out there, Janet. I love you. All right. Thank you guys. Until next time. Bye.